Hello. Don't mind my laughter. This is actually kind of a take two. Uh, Welcome to another episode of the Hungry Bleak podcast. I am Antonio Pomares. So today's guest, we actually just spoke for like an hour or so, or just short of it, and then had technical difficulties. So this is kind of a round two, take two for it. But gracious enough, had time enough to say, "Hey, things are good. Can we do this over again?" Yes, do it. Run it. So uh, written comics. This person's written comics I didn't even know he had written. I hadn't even paid attention to it, and there are comics that I dig. Batman and the Outsiders, Romulus, Chariot, just to name a few. And they're going to be writing the new Blade series, which is going to drop in June or July. I can't remember which one, but either way, I'm there. It looks phenomenal. I'm excited by it, and everything that we talked about earlier. We're going to be kind of touching back on again, folks. This is Bryan Hill.
Howdy.
Yes, sir. How are you
I'm
again,
good.
sir?
I'm good. Yeah, it had a little wire problem there, but it's
Hey,
all good.
look,
Although you could like do an episode 2 and just use the previous one and then just make this the second one.
I kind of thought about just saying, look, I'm just going to release it, just what have you. I kind of thought about doing it.
And just go
I
up with
might
like a
because
black
it's
title
there.
card saying we had some technical difficulties. Continued in episode 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in case someone doesn't uh watch that first episode, what have you, um, could you give us a little bit of a background on how you got into writing and your love of being a creator?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, so movies were really important to me growing up. My mother was into them. She introduced me to her love of film. I had a cousin that was in Germany I stayed with for a couple weeks when I was a kid, and he had a library of those VHS tapes that had like the three movies on them. And
Yep.
I was in Germany and I couldn't speak German and I was kind of like freaked out. So I spent most of my time in his apartment just watching movies. And it's the connectivity of films that really kind of drew me in. The shared experiences, the cinema paradiso of the whole deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's always found movies to be uh, movies are like kind of like a butterfly that lands on flower to flower to flower. You know what I mean? Kind of like
Yeah.
it kind of makes a bunch of flowers a garden, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where it kind of came from. That love of storytelling, and I think and I didn't have a really bad childhood by any means, but I had difficulties as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, and I think escaping into film was a useful therapeutic thing for me, and uh, that kind of seeded that love of it, into me. But to be honest, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an FBI agent.
Really?
Yeah, I wanted to catch serial killers. I read Red Dragon by Thomas Harris when I was like 12.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to be Will Graham, and like do the FBI profiling and the whole thing, like the VICAP, the whole deal.
Mm.
And my mother realized that I wasn't joking when I was around 16 or 17. She sat me down and she's like, Bryan, I don't care what you do. Just do something where you don't have a gun.
Okay.
And I'm like, fair enough.
Okay.
I want to be a Jedi. Well, I can't really be a Jedi. That's not a job. But Star Wars is a story. Maybe I can tell stories. And yeah, and so that's like where it kind of jumped in there. I'm very interested in the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in dealing with the vicissitudes of life. I think storytelling is a great vehicle for that. And then I also think storytelling is the last vestige of commonly adopted philosophy we have in the world. I'm into philosophy, right? I read Marcus Aurelius, I read Seneca. I'm a Stoic by nature. We were talking previously about Blade, and we can get to it again. I read the
Mm-hmm.
Hagakure, I read Miyamoto Musashi, Book of Five Rings, the I Ching. Like I've always found philosophy to be a very grounding element for me. But a lot of people don't read philosophy. But most
Really?
everyone watches films. They watch stories, and I believe that storytelling is just a vehicle for the delivery of emotion. I mean that's what we're doing. Like I have an emotion, and then I write a story, and if the story is successful, it delivers the emotion that I have to you, the viewer or reader. And in addition to the ideas presented within those stories, it serves a useful function, right? Like let's think to The Empire Strikes Back. Uh,
Mm.
you know, try not. Do or do not. There is no try, right?
Yeah.
That was a kind of a formative philosophical lesson for me. Fear and anger leading you to the dark side, right? Like as a kid, I was engaging Star Wars ethics before I even thought about psychology or, thought about issues of destiny and that kind of way. So storytelling is just a way for me to dream with purpose and share those dreams with other people through the form of stories.
That's actually one of the best ways I've ever heard it described, truthfully. And yeah, that line, that is one of like those iconic lines of, yeah, there is no try. Like
Yeah.
it's, even if you say, oh well, I'm trying to do it, no, you're doing it. You're doing it. You may not have completely accomplished it or done, but you're doing it.
Well, I've said this on a previous podcast. I work with some young writers, and just try to help them formulate kind of an approach, a method, right? What the Greeks would call mythos, right? And one of the things I tell them to do is take out a piece of paper and write down 10 things you think are true about the world, right? And then whittle that list down until you get to the thing that you think is most true about the world or most true about humanity, whichever speaks to you. So then you have a core philosophical idea. Once you have that core philosophical idea, now you can continue to tell stories about that idea, right? So to put this in context, if I tell you this concept, mankind's relentless pursuit of technological power will ultimately be his undoing, right? That's basically every movie James Cameron has ever written and directed. Whether you're talking about The Terminator or you're talking about Titanic, he's always engaging mankind's hubris when it comes to technology, right? And how that hubris can lead to apocalypse of some sort, right? Terminator is a literal apocalypse. Skynet wakes up, blows up the world. Titanic is a microcosmic apocalypse of the Titanic itself. Avatar is the potential apocalypse of whatever the blue planets are called. I'm not fluent in Avatar, but it's always that, right? Aliens is about the hubristic pursuit of the xenomorph, but how it can ultimately threaten all of mankind. So Cameron has his idea, and he continues to engage his idea. And so when you look at other filmmakers, you'll find that filmmakers that are really consistent about making high quality work oftentimes keep returning to a philosophical idea. So I think that stories are the last vestige of readily adopted philosophy we have in the world. And I still remember things Mr. Miyagi told Daniel-san. I was just on Twitter the other day, and I was just tweeting out affirmative stuff. I try to be a positive force on Twitter. There's someone who's very dear to me, who I respect and admire in so many ways. And, she kind of chastised me for being a little negative on Twitter or being too critical in a way that wasn't helpful, because she was like, well, you have a lot of people that follow you. And, your words have an effect, and that effect can be positive or negative. And I was like, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. So I try to be as positive as I can. And one of the things I was sharing was just a quote from Karate Kid Part 3. It's when Daniel is afraid of karate's bad boy, Mike Barnes. Mike Barnes has been beating him up the entire All Valley under 18 tournament. And I think he just took like a bad hit to the leg or something. And he's, Daniel has a problem blocking the things that come at his legs. And so Daniel was laying on the mat. And he's like, Mr. Miyagi, I'm scared of this guy. I can't do it. I just want to go home. Machio's great in that scene. And Miyagi, tells him, like, Yosh, it's okay lose to opponent. It's not okay lose to fear. Right? And that mattered to me as a kid. So when fear was getting in my way, whether it's fear of being able to accomplish something, fear of being able to talk to a girl, fear of being able to do whatever it was, I kind of still have Pat Morita's performance in my head. directed by John G. Avildsen, written by Robert Mark Kamen, that it's okay to lose to an opponent, but it's not okay to lose to fear. So when you get that gift from storytelling in your formative years, I think it stays with you. And what I aspire to do, and I don't know if I've ever done it, is to create stories that help people the way stories help me, right? Because it's like a cycle, you know.
Right.
We receive and we give, and therefore we receive, and therefore we give, right? The only way to receive abundance is to be generous, you know. And if you have an ability or even a deep interest, be generous with it, because if you're generous with that ability and your deep interest, you're going to receive abundance. But if you're just focused on what you can gain, you probably won't get very far. So yeah, that's why storytelling matters to me.
That makes a lot of, I mean, it's completely true. And it is great to see, because I kind of had something similar happen to me. As far as, like, you know, some of I'm not on social media very much, just because of just because social media. And
Just because
I'm
social media.
I'm gonna be like, some days I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know, you laugh a little bit. Then there's some days I'm like, yeah, I'm good, and I just
Oh, we
shut
can
it down.
go in
I
on
just
social
walk off.
media. I
And I
have choice words for social media. I feel free to bring that up.
No,
I
because
have
I don't
I
want
have
to give them the
opinions.
time. I just don't. I just don't. And I'm
Fair
like,
enough.
okay, cool, you know. But then I was like, you know what? I enjoy making people laugh. So if I can make someone laugh, like one person laugh from
Absolutely.
whatever post I put on, cool, great. If 3 people laugh, cool, great. If nobody laughs, okay,
Well, one of
that's
the
fine
things
too. It's
I tell people all the time, Antonio. So okay, so let me, and we'll get to comics and
yeah,
why Blade is awesome and
yeah,
everything else. We'll
exactly.
get to that. But like one of the things that that deeply concerns me about the world is the culture of disconnection we have,
Hmm.
the culture of loneliness that we have. We're kind of bifurcated, right? We're split into two. We are simultaneously connected to hundreds or thousands of people, but in a very shallow way.
Yes.
But those deep, enduring connections are few and far between, right? And so we can know of thousands of people, but how many people truly know us, right? How many of them really care about us? You know, we've devalued the word friend. You know, to me, a friend is someone that would do something for you without gaining anything in return.
Yes.
That's a friend. So people that follow you on social media, they could be your friends, but they're not necessarily your friends. And the word itself has been devalued, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's, friend me on this, friend me on that. It doesn't
right.
have, yeah,
We've
that's
sort
true.
of we've shifted the definition of it, right? So I think it puts us in this kind of, like, I guess the French would call it an ennui, you know,
Hmm.
the little death, the petit mort, the numbness that you can have just moving through modern society in larger and smaller ways. So one of the things I tell, especially young people that are struggling, and so many of them are, because they have to deal with a lot of things that we didn't have to deal with in high school. You know,
Right.
they have to deal with it. But I tell them, if you're feeling isolated, if you're feeling low, right, if you're feeling insignificant or stuck, get out of the internal thoughts and go do something for somebody. And it doesn't have to be super challenging charity work if you don't have the time for it. But, you know, smile at someone when you walk down the street. You know, ask a stranger how they're doing and really care about the answer. One of the things I do when I'm in a bad mood, not a bad mood, I don't really get in bad moods, but one of the things I do when I'm kind of, you know, feeling a little gloomy
Yeah.
is if I'm in Starbucks, I'll pay for the person's coffee behind me when I pay for mine.
Hmm.
Just to do that kindness, because, you know, 99.9% of the time I receive genuine gratitude back. And the gratitude breaks the clouds, right? Like that small act of consideration to a stranger where I have nothing to gain, and that genuine expression of gratitude that I most often receive is enough to break the clouds of whatever I was thinking, enough to get me out of my own head.
Hmm.
Uh, and in a culture where I think we are, ooh, I think we're all being Pied Piper led down a path of narcissism in a way, kind of encouraged to be narcissistic in a way. With Instagram and Twitter and the rest of it, like the idea that you need to broadcast your life and people would automatically find it interesting. And the dopamine hits you get from people that follow you, it leads to a cycle of internal darkness, I think, unless you're being willful about it and really thinking about what it's doing to you, how it's doing it to you. I mean, it's a narcotic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that culture, I think just a simple act of gratitude and giving, generosity, can take you out of what the philosophers will call solipsism.
Hmm.
Solipsism being a entire focus on self, right? You see everything through the prism of you and not what you can do for the world, not what other people are going through. It's almost like a lack of empathy because you're so focused on what's going on inside your heart and your mind. You're not giving serious, deep thought to what's going on inside the hearts and minds of people around you. And while being self-serving can lead to some opportunity and some success, it will only further and further isolate you, right? And so the only freedom of soul we get, I think, is in what we can do for other people, in the good that we can accomplish. Because when you die, you're not going to be thinking about what you had. You're not going to be thinking about material things. You're probably going to be thinking about, what did I do in my life for the world, right? And so I think it's important to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. When I was in New York more often before, the world kind of shut down and everything, and
Right.
and being a caregiver in essence. There's a place I love to go to in New York called Virgil's. Love going there,
Mm-hmm.
eating. It's right because you figure I would grab some comics and I'll go to Virgil's. I have a little spot that I sit at that nobody else seems to sit at. So perfect. It's always open. I can sit right in that little corner at the bar,
Sure.
sit there, eat my food, relax, try to eat a little bit, but I'm not trying to get sauce on everything. You know what I mean? So
Well, where is Virgil's? Oh, whereabouts?
Virgil's is on West 42nd Street, Times Square.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
kind of ambulating. I mean, I lived in New York for about 10 years. I went to NYU.
yeah.
So I lived in New York for a stretch.
It's
And
about maybe it's about 2 blocks from Midtown Comics,
okay.
where the Toys R Us that used to be,
Yeah.
right down there.
Okay.
It's a couple
Okay.
doors down, and
Mm-hmm.
you go there. Um, go in there and sit. And at a certain point, I was just sitting there, and I was like, and I would start seeing if someone was there by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
having maybe a couple of drinks, what have you. I would eat my food, and I would, go to pay the bill, and I would say, "Excuse me," to the server, and I'll say, um, "That person there," and it was most likely a woman, not just because of attraction, whatever. It was just because I wanted to do something nice for that woman because she went through hell that day.
Mm-hmm.
Just because this world, America, she went through hell.
Just because this
Just because.
world, ... America,
I mean,
underline.
there's no other way
Absolutely.
for me to say it. That's
Absolutely.
it. Especially a black woman. So I
Right.
said, okay, her bill. Could you like charge that to my card too? And she's like, you're sure? I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, you know her? I was like, no, I don't
No.
know her.
Right.
And I would pay, and I would go, and I would sign both bills, and I would, tip for both, obviously. And I would say, um, don't tell her, because I would leave before they would leave,
Right.
and I made sure to do that. I would
You're
leave
not
before they
doing
leave.
it for praise.
Yeah, because I don't. No, that's not what. And I just say,
And Antonia, what you're also doing is you're preserving someone's dignity,
yeah,
right? You're letting
I
them
just
have
want,
the space for dignity. Yep.
yeah, just have that. Whatever their day was like, it just look. Somebody just said, hey, I don't know what went through the day, what have you, but I hope it. I hope this makes it better. If your day was already good, I hope this like is just something that you can go home and smile about. Yeah, great, cool, whatever, and do it. And I did a few times just because it was, you're there, I'm there. I don't know you. You don't know me, but we're on this planet together. Humans have kind of a uh, connectivity as far as like our energy, such like that, what have you. And I just want you to know that there are decent people out there who aren't just looking to get over on you for whatever reason. Again, for whatever happened during the day, hey, there you go. And I would make sure that I left beforehand. And sometimes I would say, well, if they ask, what should I say? I just say that somebody just picked up their tab. That's it. There's nothing else to say. They picked up their tab and for them to have a good day. That's it.
Well, and it kind of roots back to comics in a way, right? Roots back
Yeah.
to the storytelling, because one of the things that befuddles me about my business is, and I'm not going to name any names and make news, but I've met people and worked with a lot of people on comic book style stories, whether it's
Hmm.
the books or it's a TV adaptation or it's a film script I'm writing, what have you, right? I've done a number of this stuff for a number of years at this point. And sometimes in these processes, I meet people that are absolutely absent of the ethics of the story we're telling. And
Mm.
that disconnect always just befuddles me. I don't understand how you could be deeply invested into a story about heroism, but you live like a villain,
Oh.
right? Like that dichotomy is insane. And in some of the online interactions with people, and I see this sometimes, and I understand. I mean, I get upset with how some stories are told. I get upset with, that's not satisfying the way I wanted it to be, or they cast somebody and I don't love that, or
Right.
we all have those feelings.
Yeah.
But if you really love the thing, and the thing is about essentially being a force of good in the world, if you truly love it, then how are you online acting like a twat? Right? How do you square that circle? Right? Like that, it's this opposition of forces. And I find it just really strange and odd. You know, like,
Mhm.
um, like I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of The Last Jedi as a
Mhm.
film. I thought it was expertly made on a technical level. I thought that there were like brilliant, kind of cinematic things going on in it, but that wasn't the way I wanted to return to Luke Skywalker for me. For
Mhm.
me, right? Doesn't make me right, doesn't make me wrong. It's just that's not the experience I wanted. But to be so virulent about it and to be so negative and
Yes.
pointed and toxic, it's like, well, do you even love the idea of a Jedi? Because you're not manifesting any of the ethics of Star Wars right now.
Exact
Like,
opposite.
you're mad at a movie because a hero you loved is portrayed as a bitter old guy while you're being a bitter old guy, right? And so
Mhm.
that's like some stone in the fountain right there, you know? That's like the thing that makes you make the Yoda sound.
And they
You
never
know,
correlate the two. Never correlate the two. Never. They
never comes
never
into their
see
mind.
their own ridiculousness and absurdity in what they're saying and doing. Meanwhile, they're mirroring what they never see it. And when you
And,
explain
and,
it to them, they still don't.
and I'm not invalidating the feeling, right? I mean, I
Oh
do
no, no,
believe that
that's not.
all feelings are valid, right? Like your feelings exist. And I think it's important to explore the nature of the feelings. And so if you walk out of a movie and you're just crestfallen because of
Mhm.
what the choices that were made, I think those feelings are absolutely valid. That's why we have criticism. But
Mm.
it's when the expression of those feelings becomes toxic
Yes.
and combative. That's the issue, right? Like, I think we are allowed to feel anything we feel, but we do need to measure our expression of feeling if we want to have a better world. If you don't want to have a better world, then no one has the safety on, and everyone can just be as rude as they want to be, and they can feel they're justified because they're just saying what's true, right?
Right.
Like, we can live in that world if you want to. But in my experience, that's an Ouroboros. It's a spiral, dark circle that just doesn't lead to anything beneficial. Um,
Yeah.
and I just wish that people could express opinion, sincere opinion, honest opinion. I'm not saying be dishonest. I'm saying, be honest, but also be aware of the effect of your delivery, of the words, of what you're doing, and try not to make the world worse while you're expressing your truth.
Yeah. That's yeah. That's a whole other
Right. That's a whole thing.
series of
So we
podcast
and now we
episodes.
can talk funny books.
Yeah. Exactly. So, uh, yeah, because yeah, that can definitely go. You know what? That whole thing just kind of, you know, let's talk about something a lot more fun. Let's talk. Oh, this shirt. Just happen to be wearing this. I mean, we're going to be talking about a character that is just fun, good. We're going to talk about Blade, everyone's favorite Daywalker. Um, and this was had to be in the cards. We have a movie that's going to be coming up.
Mhm,
We've had Blade in the Avengers.
mhm.
Blade was never an Avenger
We
before, I don't
we
believe.
got blades in our kitchen.
That's it. We got Blade definitely because they've been cooking up for this cat. We
Yeah, yeah,
have Brielle Brooks, a Bloodline Blade's daughter.
sure.
We've had one shots, and now we have a new series written by you. Completely stoked about this. Can you tell us something? Can you tell us some of the what it was like to get this gig and what we're going to
Sure.
be up seeing?
Well, I'm really, really grateful to be in the position that I am, that
Mm.
people think it would be interesting to have me make something up and share it with people. And so I've met really, really good people during my time and tenure in comics, if we're just going to localize it to that. I'm kind of busy now with Hollywood stuff, a lot of TV development I'm doing, screenwriting projects I'm on, big major ones. I've got a couple films I'd like to direct. Those are coming together, so I don't have a plethora of time. However, uh, when someone like Will Moss, an editor over at Marvel, who I consider a friend, and he reaches out and says, "Hey, would you be interested in working on Blade?" Well, I've done previous work with him and really enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I like the character a lot. I was I'll be honest, I wasn't deep into Blade until I saw the first Wesley movie. I didn't dislike Blade. I just didn't have a real opinion on Blade from the Wolfman era. I just knew, like, oh yeah, I know who Blade is, that kind of thing. But I really took to that movie, and then that led me into the comics and kind of digging into the character. And I honestly think that Blade doesn't get enough credit for how it altered popular culture in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just cinematically and what it did for kineticism in movies, violence, the way it approached that, style, and you could see that effect on comics as well. And Blade was one of the first examples, first like really strong examples that you didn't have to make a movie about Superman or Batman to get a hit.
Yes.
You could make a movie about someone else. I mean, we had Spawn, we had that picture, and we had a couple other things. But Blade was really a great case study. Like, as long as you like stay true to what it is and make a good experience, audiences will flock to a character that isn't Batman, that isn't Superman, that isn't Spider-Man. So the character holds special meaning. And I think as a black person in America, it's always nice to have a cool black character, out there
Yeah.
that's like genuinely cool and unapologetic. I think the thing about Blade that I like the most is how he's unapologetic about being Blade. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, he's not navel gazy about it. I mean, he can get down on himself a little bit about, the monstrous parts of his nature, but when it comes to like who, Eric Brooks is, and what he stands for and why he acts, this character that is relentless, unapologetic, kind of acts without hesitation, that's really fun to write. So yeah, I was totally in on it. And I hadn't really thought about the movie, and because Marvel has so many things in development that
Yeah.
it kind of goes in one ear and out the other at some point, right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
hear about things happening, there's a movie happening, they're casting, Mahershala is a great actor. I'm really curious to see like how that all goes, but that wasn't really in my mind, man. It was more like, oh, I haven't done work for Marvel in a bit. I liked working over there. I like the character a lot, and I think I can create a good experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's Blade has such an impact that I mean they started modeling more the character off of the Wesley Snipes um
Hmm.
uh interpretation of it. And because it was like it was like kind of it was something so different because nobody knew. Like some people didn't even realize that it was a Marvel character, that it was a comic book character. They thought it
Hmm.
was a movie coming out. So for it to have such an impact, and it's still one of my favorite. Like if somebody asks me, "Oh, well, what's one of your favorite MCU movies?" I don't know. Like, well, if we're going to what if like timeline, what have you, Blade
Right.
is up there. Blade is up there with me as far as Black Panther, Shang-Chi, and Winter Soldier. Those might be my
Well,
four favorite MCU, well, Marvel, I should say movies.
Well, if we're talking about the first Blade from like the '90s, right?
Yeah.
directed by Stephen Norrington, written by David Goyer. It's kind of a remarkably watchable movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those movies where like you're flipping channels and then you catch it on TNT or something. I'll just watch this next part. And before you know it, Blade's fighting Lamagre, the Blood God, and the whole thing, and you're there for the whole stretch, right? I think it's got kind of underrated performances. You look at that movie, you got Donald Logue in there, who's great. You got
who
Stephen
always
Dorff.
gives. Yep.
And Stephen Dorff's turn as Deacon Frost, I think, is one of the most underrated villain performances we've had in a comic book film. I mean, he's so charismatic. You know what he reminds me of? He has that same kind of swagger that Kiefer Sutherland had in The Lost Boys, right? When he was playing David. It's like,
oh yeah,
it's like that kind of, sort of unique thing, and then there's some subtleties going on in Blade 2 about, I think there's a subtle kind of implication of racial dynamics within Blade. And a definite implication of class dynamics, right? Like the vampires as evil yuppies, basically. The vampires as evil, entitled rich kids is what Blade feels like. Like those are all of the rich kids who got everything they wanted when they wanted it. They're just, eternally adolescent, throwing temper tantrums, and they want to bring back a blood god. And I think one of the things about the first Blade that resonates across the board for everybody is you want those people to get it. Like when you're at a restaurant, you see a table of them, you want them to get it. You go to a club and they're in there and they're being all obnoxious, you want them to get it, right? And Blade gives it to the people you want to get got. I think that's a critical part, I think, of who he is as a character.
It was just it was like, I remember watching. I didn't see it in theaters. I wasn't able to. So I remember at the time, my high school sweetheart, she had got it from Blockbuster. This is how long ago it was. It got it from Blockbuster.
Blockbuster Video.
Look, I was happy because Blockbuster. So she got it, and she was like, "Oh, let's watch a movie." And I was like, "All right, cool." So she browsed it, and I was like, "Oh, I got a movie for us." I was like, "All right, cool." So she pops it in, and I'm like, "Oh, well, what is it?" And she goes, "Blade," and I was like, "What?" And I hadn't seen it. She hadn't seen it. And it just blew my mind away. I think she got Blade and she got The Crow.
Oh man, that is.
And I mean, that was the double feature.
Yeah, you in some '90s angst right there. Every night I call your name.
And again, both those, we were talking about soundtracks earlier. Those two movies had soundtracks that hit you, like the music sticks in your head. Like I can still hear the bloodbath music. If I look at an image of Blade, that's what I hear in my head a little bit, and I'm like, damn, that's cool. So it's going to be awesome to see. Yeah, I always try to see what companies are doing. If there's a character that's getting a lot of love at a certain point, like whether it's a TV show, an animated series, what have you, I'm like, there's got to be some type of ongoing or maybe a mini series coming up. So I felt there had to be a Blade coming up because there's been such a huge focus and love and support and with the movie. And I was like, well, something has to come because I'm seeing him too many times now. I'm seeing him pop up and stuff. So I'm exactly so happy about that. Was there, now this is me being a fan, is there going to be a scene at some point where we are going to get Blade yelling, Frost?
There will
just
be now.
Because. Oh, okay. Sometimes you have to speak these things into existence, folks. I'm now. Just saying. Just saying. Yeah. One of the best parts of the movie. Was there anything in the series that you may have added that you're like, yeah, this has to be a part of this comic, whether it's an Easter egg from a movie, anime series from Amazing Spider-Man years ago when he had that vampire storyline?
I mean, I don't think about it in those kinds of terms like that. I mean, I do put like little things in there, but I almost don't want to reveal it on a podcast. I'd rather have people discover it and see if they can find it. Nice. One of the things I like to do on Twitter, it's fun, is, hey, I put a little Easter egg in issue whatever. First person that answers properly, that can find it, I'll send them a signed copy of a book or something like that. So I do put little nods in there. Like there's an episode of Titans that I wrote that has a few references to Michael Mann. Michael Mann's work. Michael Mann is my favorite filmmaker. He directed Thief, Heat, Collateral, Public Enemies, Ali, Last of the Mohicans. I'm missing a couple. Jericho Mile, Miami Vice kind of creator producer with Anthony Yurkovich back in the day. I'm a huge fan of Michael Mann's work, so I put a few references to Michael Mann's stuff in that episode, and some folks got it, and I gave them like a gift card to get a video game or something, and just like fun things to do on social media. So I do those things, but they kind of happen in the moment while I'm writing.
Okay.
And then like, oh yeah, you know what? We can wink, wink, nod, nod to that. Like we can call back, to that thing. And that's fun. But if I reveal it on the podcast, then there's no scavenger hunt. So
Very true.
I gotta
Very
wait
true.
until the book comes out, and then you look for it, and then if you find it and tell it to me on Twitter, I'll send you something cool.
Cool.
Kind of cool.
As far between the different types of writing, like, is there one that you prefer more, or are they all like they all have their but between like comics and like the live action writing, is there one that you like a little bit more, or what's one major difference between the two mediums?
It's they're all different, right? I mean, it's almost like Russian nesting dolls of storytelling efficiency. Because a movie, you have like 120 pages, basically, you can tell the story in. Because a page is about a minute. It gives you about 120 minutes. Generally, you kind of want a screenplay to be about 110 pages, 110 minutes, blah, 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 blah. TV episode, a little shorter. You got about 53 pages, right? Because you got to get that whole thing in about an hour, and you want to have a little breathing room, all that. Comics, you got 20 pages with an average of 5 panels per page. And a couple of those pages are going to be splash pages. So, you're looking at not a ton of panels, and you have to get a lot of story in telling in images. And I go by the Frank Miller rule, where one image has to be one moment. You can't have an emotional shift within a static image. It's one of Frank Miller's storytelling rules. Well, that means that you have to be very careful about which images you're going to use, because I can't have a person be mad at the top of a piece of dialogue and then okay at the bottom of the dialogue all in one panel, because then what moment is the artist going to draw, right? So comics is incredibly efficient form. And so they're all different. But what I do love about comics as opposed to television and screenwriting is in comics, I can get real-time feedback from readers in a constant way that you kind of never do in screenwriting, because by the time, most of the time you sell a movie, it doesn't get made. Or sometimes you write 3 drafts of a movie and then the director changes and they bring their own person in and they rewrite everything, right?
Right.
So sometimes only maybe 10, 15 people are actually going to conscientiously read your work, and they're all in the business. So comics gives me real-time feedback from real people who spent their real hard-earned money to go read something, and they'll talk to me about it on Twitter. That I love, because that helps me become a better storyteller, I think, because I can see what's effective for people and what's not effective for people. Sometimes, I thought this would really resonate, and people kind of liked it, but this thing that I thought wouldn't have any value, they really resonated with that. And that opens up doors of possibility in my mind, right? So I like all of the forms, but those are the unique aspects of comics that keep me coming back. Even though, it's like, I suppose it pays the least out of everything that I do, just to be kind of blunt about it. But I find it incredibly rewarding on a personal level.
Awesome. Speaking of finding something rewarding on a personal level, self-care is incredibly important. We've learned more about that in the last 2 or 3 years or so with pandemic and mental health and everything like that. What's something that you do? What's a self-care thing that you do to help keep you grounded, that helps you to maintain your emotional and mental health?
Ooh, boy. Meditation is critically important to me.
Okay.
Like being able to cleanse myself of the experiences of the day is really important. And so meditation helps me do that. I can tell you a couple if you'd like to hear.
Yeah, sure.
Another thing that I like to do is I journal a lot.
Okay.
As someone that means the world to me gave me a book, a little kind of blank journal. And it's a really beautifully done thing. It's like leather bound and it's got some inscription on it and the whole thing. And so I use that book every week. I'll sit down and I'll write down my successes and failures of the week. And I do this on Sundays. And I just kind of write down like, okay, these are the things I thought I accomplished well. Well, it could be professional, it could be personal, whatever.
Right.
These are the things I thought I could be better at. You know, these are the conversations that could have gone a different way. Maybe I was too reactive in a moment, and I should have responded instead of reacting. Maybe there was a business meeting I took where, I wished I had done this instead of that, zig instead of zag. And just taking stock, just taking a moment to stop moving forward for a bit and reflect on like what I did that week is incredibly helpful for me because it keeps me from repeating errors. It makes me mindful, right? And mindfulness is like the gateway to agency. And then like I know what I need to improve, right? So one of the things I have been working on, for the past I'd probably say a couple years, definitely in an intense way over the last year, has been my reactivity. I don't think I'm an especially reactive person, but I wasn't conscientious about not reacting. I think I had a little too much faith in my nature and my character that I wouldn't be provoked, that I couldn't be triggered, right? And then I would go through some things that would trigger me in a way that would surprise me, and then my behavior ashamed me. And I was like, okay, Bryan, you need to be more, and you need to be a little bit tighter on how you handle your reactivity, right? Because you thought you had more balance than you did. It's sort of like being in a dojo, and you think you know what you're doing, and then the sensei comes up and nudges you a certain way, and you fall down while you're doing a spin heel kick, and you realize, like, yeah, you know what, my balance isn't as good as I thought it was. But the only way I'm able to really isolate it, target it, and make it better is by remembering where I did things in the better way and where I did things in the worst way. So that like hour that I take at the end of every week to just kind of take stock in it and make little notes. And sometimes I'm not writing even full sentences. I know what the words mean. I'm just kind of putting things on, that Tuesday I could have done that, or I shouldn't have texted that, or I shouldn't even responded to that text, that kind of deal. Again, it just makes me aware. Right, it keeps me off of automatically moving through life, and instead moving in a more directed way. And I think that's it's very useful, very very useful for me.
That's actually a great way to take accountability, and there's a lot. Yeah, that's that journaling thing with what you liked and what you didn't like about as far as how you react and everything. That's actually a really great tip because I do something similar to that where I'm like, but it's usually like in the moment I'm like, those words aren't going to work. I need to text different words because I want my intention to truly be known. And it's some, just little things like that. But that's a great tip, actually. That's really, out of all the tips I've heard so far, that's actually a really great thing to do. I might have to actually steal that one from you. I'm going to be honest with you because I have a few notebooks that are empty that I've wanted to either do notes or skits, what have you. One of them might have to be just like my stock journal of just doing that. Thank you. Honestly, thank you very much for that. That's actually really great.
Well, a lot of people are like, yeah, you should journal, but they don't really tell people what to journal.
That yeah, exactly. Because you'll do more like today was like what you think journaling or writing in a diary should be. Oh, this is what happened, which is great because you can see it that way. But the way you're doing it is much more, I want to say, direct. You're like, okay, this is what, and it's much more taking stock and taking accountability. And it will being praise yourself too, like, yeah, I did do that. That was a better way to handle it than this. And this way I could have done better. That's actually that's a really great tip. Jeez. I'm gonna be thinking about that all day now. I'm waiting for
Well,
Sundays
yeah,
now.
because
All right, great.
a lot of times, we just get into patterns of behavior, and we have, sometimes our lives are a series of cycles, right? Like
Yes.
you could have a relationship cycle with a friend, or a romantic relationship cycle, or a relationship cycle with your employer, or whatever it is. And sometimes the cycles can be toxic. Sometimes the cycles, can be good and then bad, all the other stuff. But if we're not happy with any sort of situation, right, with any sort of interaction, we can't expect another person to change. We can't expect the situation itself to change. We can't expect the dynamics to change. The only thing that we can control the change of is ourselves. So if you have a toxic working environment that you kind of dread going to because these things always happen, by taking a moment and thinking about, yeah, but why does that always happen? And you think, you know what? It's not my workplace that's toxic. It's Harry.
Mm.
So I just stay away from Harry.
Yeah.
And I have a better day. You know? Or like if you get a text from somebody and it's a little cold or it's a little biting or whatever it is, you could engage it or you could not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and wait for the winds to change on the other end of the phone. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but you don't need to engage it. You know, instead of the automatic reaction of, oh, I got to deal with Harry. I'm going to deal with it. I'm dealing with that. And then like, oh, I can't believe that Bill texted me. Yeah, well, screw you, man. You know, like all that, you know,
Yeah. All
whatever's
that.
going on. Right. Like just take a bit like, oh, I can change though. You know, I don't have to do the same thing. Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can't affect, I mean, we can affect it, but we can't expect to be able to, you know, powerfully affect the things that people do to us. The only thing that we have 100% control over is how we respond to what is done to us. And journaling and being conscientious ties you back into the agency you have over your life. And so you get out of this feeling of things keep happening to me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this thing always happens. It's always going to be like this. Well, the way I battle that, you know, I'm no expert. You know, I just move through the world and, you know, like what's Jango Fett say? I'm just a simple man making his way through the universe.
Yep.
But the way I deal with it is I just try to be a bit more conscientious about what I'm doing, recognize the cause and effect in things that trouble me in my life, and then say, well, if I put forth a different cause, perhaps I'll have a different effect. You know,
That's true.
and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it always helps the quality of life.
And that's awesome. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That speaking of self care and things that help us to feel better and everything, what are 3 comic books or graphic novels that you would recommend to people?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to be all Batman all the time, but you know, look, I think Arkham Asylum by
Okay.
Grant Morrison and Dave McKean is amazing, and still psychologically rich and complicated. And I think it does what graphic novels do best, which is highlight an aspect of a character and then delve into it in a really interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely recommend that. I'm going to give you some formative stuff.
Okay.
Mainly because one, those are the books that really mattered to me when I really needed the inspiration. Two, if I don't name anything contemporary, then I can't offend somebody by not naming their work because they're all friends of mine. So Arkham Asylum. Let's put some Frank Miller in there. I'm not going to put Dark Knight Returns in there. I'm going to put Batman Year One in there.
Okay.
So it's 2
Yes.
Batman. So let me get off of Batman. And oh gosh. Trying to think of that, you know, because I mean, I don't want to do Dark Knight Returns. I don't want to do Ronin because I'm a big Frank Miller fan, so I don't want to do all of that stuff. Arkham Asylum is the best. Morrison, you know what? I will put something contemporary in there.
Okay.
Sheriff of Babylon, Tom's book.
Okay.
I think that book is amazing, and I think everybody should read it and read it again. And it's really what made me fall in love with Tom as a writer, Tom King.
Mm.
Um, and as a person too. I mean, he's always been super generous to me and welcoming and the rest of it. Before I was even able to write comics, I was just tweeting at him about how much I love Sheriff of Babylon, you know, and he would always respond, and you know, just a cool guy. So I'd say Arkham Asylum, Batman Year One, and Sheriff of Babylon.
Okay. Yeah, a friend of mine is a huge Tom King fan and got me into. I think the first thing I may have read from Tom King was The Vision.
Yeah, or is it Sheriff of
And
Baghdad? It might be Sheriff of Baghdad. I keep wanting to say Babylon, but let me look it up.
Babylon sounds right. That's what I see in my head.
Right?
Yeah, that seems right. But then again, I could be
Yes,
totally
it's
wrong.
Sheriff of Babylon. I got it
Okay.
right.
All right.
Sometimes
All
I
right.
call it Sheriff of Baghdad.
Yeah.
But yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's awesome. Yeah. Oh. And yeah, she keeps telling me that I think that was maybe her introduction to Tom King maybe, and then she just got into everything. She read this Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm starting to read. I think I'm at the end of the first issue, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I have Mr. Miracle, but I haven't gotten into it yet. But then I got into Adam Strange, and I was like, "Oh, I love the deconstruction. It's just really awesome." So, folks, it's in the title. You can't be surprised when I bring up food. You 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 can't. So, what is a favorite restaurant of yours, and what's a favorite dish that you have there?
Okay. This is a little bit of a deep cut.
Okay.
So one of my happiest memories as a kid. So there was a time when times were kind of hard, and my mother and I lived in our grandmother's house,
Mm-hmm.
a little tiny house. Mom and grandma shared one room, and so I could have my own room. This is the kind of things that like moms do.
Right.
Try to keep the weight of the situation off of the kid. And we didn't have a lot of money, but every month we would go get takeout Chinese. And it would be like a thing that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And so takeout Chinese kind of has an emotional resonance for me. I don't eat it often because it doesn't help my pants fit, but I'm a big fan of it, right? And so the place that we used to go to when I was a kid, that place isn't around anymore. Now we're in St. Louis, Missouri, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like there is a place that's close to my mother's house now, called China King.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Olive Street Road. Olive in North and South. That'll mean something to people who are any from St. Louis know what that is.
Okay.
And the egg foo young there is majestic.
Really?
Yeah, egg foo young is probably my favorite thing to eat. I mean, I don't eat it often because it is eggs, kind of fatty meat,
Mm-hmm.
deep fried
Yep.
into thick pancakes, served over fried rice, if you're just going to be real about it, served over fried rice with kind of fat, rich gravy
Yep.
and soy. I mean, it's killing me when I eat this, but it's probably my favorite meal of all time, because it brings back just so many fun memories. My grandmother passed away a number of years ago, and it was like her favorite thing to eat too. So that's really what it is. So whenever I go back to St. Louis, which I do a couple times a year at least,
Mm.
first place I go is China King. Like I live in
Wow.
LA now. I won't eat for like 12 hours. So when I land and I try to buy a flight that gets me in like in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
so like around noon or 1, I can be at China King and I just get a feast and I just eat to my heart's content. Diet be damned. And every time it is glorious. And if you can chase that with like I don't know, like a Negro Modelo or something like that, you're really in business, man. You're really in business. I mean, I've had great meals in Los Angeles, had fancy schmancy places, uh, someone has introduced me to a lot of like really nice restaurants I didn't even know existed, and the meals have been wonderful and the company was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing beats egg foo young from that same bowl that my mother's had since I was like 7 years old, sitting cross-legged on the floor in the TV room, with that beer and that little plastic fork that bends like 90
Uh-huh.
degrees every time you try to like get a forkful.
Yep.
That to me is bliss.
Yeah, I think we all have a place like that
Yeah.
because I'm going through a list of places like that in my head, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I can give you some 5-star, 4-star, Michelin star, whatever. That's all fine. But no,
it is,
China
doesn't.
King on Olive Street Road, by North and South in University City. Go there, tell them Bryan sent you. They won't know what you're talking about. Tell them anyway.
And that's awesome because I lived in St. Louis for a little bit, so I kind of know what you're talking about. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's over there. It's on Olive Street. You see there's a Royal Bank a little bit down the ways. It's like before you start to hit like Olivet
Mm-hmm.
and all that. And it is so good. It's so good, man. And I've gotten egg foo young out here in LA, in Chinatown. Ain't the same. Ain't the same. New York egg foo young is much better than LA egg foo young, I will say,
Mm-hmm.
but not quite the same though.
It doesn't have it. It doesn't have that home.
Oh yeah, but I'll definitely go to bat for New York takeout Chinese over
I
LA
bet.
takeout
Yeah.
Chinese any day of the week. Any day of the week. LA
New
LA
York
takeout
just
Chinese,
no, it's not.
St. Louis, New York, LA.
Damn, it's not even on the screen. Wow,
No.
that's so. On that note, folks, we have talked about Egg Foo Young. We have talked about meditation and self care, taking accountability. We have talked about social media. We've talked about Blade. We have run a huge gamut of things to talk about and of points. And yeah, I hope you were able to take a lot away from this, whether it is whether it's journaling, which I definitely want to do the way that you're doing it. I enjoy it. Whether it's because my mother's a big Egg Foo Young fan, so I think I might get her some Egg Foo Young tonight or tomorrow night. She digs it. And Blade
Mm-hmm.
coming up. For some reason, I keep thinking it's July, but I'm hoping it's June.
It might be June. It might be June. Don't know.
I'm crossing my fingers that June. That is sooner.
Follow my
Because
Twitter at Bryan Edward Hill. And it's Bryan
yes,
with a Y. And when I know, you'll know.
exactly.
What
Follow me on
hot breaking
Twitter.
news is. I'm Bryan Edward Hill.
Look, the minute I'm actually I do want to check because I know a few days ago when I first heard about it, it wasn't up for pre-orders. So
Yeah.
I'll check now because yeah, I definitely want to see what's going on and I want to check out those variants.
And I'm going to
So,
sign a bunch of books. And I'll probably do some kind of, giveaway thing or something when it comes out on my Twitter feed. Maybe I can try to figure out some kind of sort of quasi charity good cause thing to do with a bunch of number ones. Like you give $5 to this cause and then I'll send you an issue of a book and maybe I'll have like 100 books or something that I sign and we'll give over a little bit of $500 to some kind of thing. I don't know, just trying to make a community, man, trying to make community positive. But yeah, so anyone listening to this, thank you for listening. Follow me at Bryan Edward Hill, at Bryan Edward Hill on Twitter, at Bryan E Hill on Instagram. And keep listening to Antonio, keep listening to the Hungry Bleak podcast, and stay safe out there.
Thank you, sir. On that note, folks, have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of it. Drink water, take your meds, whether it's for physical, mental, or emotional ailment, because I want you to be the best you that you can be. All right. You have a good day. Enjoy it. I will see you next time every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, YouTube, Twitch, and wherever podcasts are available. Have a good one. Bye.